Okay, welcome back everybody. This is the third tutorial I've done, and this one's going to be on ducks. A little bit different for me. I like the ducks and I like the wildlife scenery, and I have several of these that I've done. Not so much painted them all, but there's some of them wildlife scenes that I've done. I do like doing landscapes. So this was one that I got a ChatGPT image, and then I usually go in, and this one I went into Blender and I knocked down some of the big lumpy, like the head was really fat and oblonged, and you guys know sometimes these STL files get really funny. So I went in and did a bunch of work to it on Blender, and then the frame is actually a frame that I had ChatGPT make quite a while ago, and I actually have several frames that I've had made. You know, I just find an image I like, and then I'll create it with Easy Create, and then go into Blender or what have you, and kind of make sure that when you scale it, it's square and it looks right. And you can also, so I take these right now, I take them into Aspire, and I blend the two models together. And you can bake them together as one model, or you can just work with them as separate models. It works fine either way. Or if you don't have Aspire, because VCarve Pro won't let you import two 3D models at once, you can go into Blender, which is a free program, and it's pretty simple to just blend those two together in Blender and export it as one STL, and then you bring them into Aspire, or VCarve Pro, as one file, and off you go. So here I started with this yellow. I looked at the orange for a long time and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. So I went back and I said, okay, I really don't like the yellow, and I was going to go orange on top of the yellow and didn't like it either. So I said, okay, let's go back to a blue to start with. So I wasted a little paint, a little time, but that's all right. And you guys will see, if you've watched some other videos, I'm pretty reckless with the overlapping, and I could probably take a little more caution and not have so much paint going everywhere, but this is just the way I do it. And it really needs to be, it looks funny if you don't let the brush strokes fly up against the object. If you try to cut it in and make it really neat, you won't get the kind of streaky, these skies, you kind of want them streaky looking and not all one solid color. That would look kind of funny. And you can either, I do it a couple different ways. Sometimes I'll paint the sky and then I'll let it dry a whole day, because you can't do this without letting it dry. And then I'll go back and I really, really light mist of water, and you can go back and do some really nice, it streaks really easy then. It really looks good too. It's another way to do skies. And if you're doing oil paints, they blend for, you got an hour probably to work with them. So, but these are acrylics. So I'm just giving it a coat of blue here. Finishing up the blue. Not sure why I painted up along the edge there. I think it was just one of the things you want to do with these acrylics, especially because they do dry pretty quick, is you don't want any lumps inside your 3D ridges, because it'll, it's not the huge deal breaker, but it does cause some problems later on. Little earthquake there. So here we went to I'm going to let that top dry, and we're going to go to the water. So I always start with a really dark blue. I'll take a aquamarine blue acrylic or whatever you're going to use, and I almost get it black. I get it really dark, and as you'll see there. And that's just what I do with the water for the base color, even if you've got a colored reflection. So reflections are I'm still trying to figure out how to do those well, but the hardest thing is reflections are always the color of the object they're reflecting, like a couple of shades lighter. So you could do the whole lake in a green if you had a bunch of green around it, and it'd still look like a lake. But I always start with a dark blue, gives me a nice start to finish, something to start with. And here I'm just kind of, I have the picture above it, but if you look at the picture, it kind of has the sun, And you can kind of see in the picture of the round dot there where the sun is, it kind of shows where the main path of the light refraction. And this is the second layer in the water, and this, it usually covers all the water, and it's got like one projector where the main focus of it is. So that's all you're trying to do. Don't worry about it too much. And we don't want it coating it really. We just want a light, And you'll see me rub my finger around it a lot. I'm just kind of smearing it. So here we went. I know I have a yellow sun coming. So I just going in and I'm kind of laying down the groundwork for this sun reflection. And I'm sure that could be a lot better. But the 3D carves are pretty forgiving with water. I mean, you can make some mistakes and it's still, as long as it's not really, really bad, the ridges kind of help. So here I'm adding some more of the ambient colors. And it's a little orange and a little yellow. I'm just kind of trying to, okay, now I'm giving the sun an early orange so it has time to dry, because at some point we'll go over, when it's almost finished, we'll go over and lightly kind of real, just almost like a spray paint coat, but we're not going to spray paint it obviously, but a really, really light coat of orange over everything. At least where the sun would shine. Okay, so we've got about 3.5, 4 layers on the water. Just giving the sun another coat. Adding in the main reflection there. And once again, when you do these, you have a picture by you. And all I'm doing is copying the picture, basically. Just adding little touches in, little streaks of white. And if you have oil paints, or if you want to wet it down, wait a little bit and then wet it down, when you strike that white on there, or like I call it maybe the third layer, we'll add more white to the splashes and things. You can actually do, if you do a cross stroke, so we did the line of the sun that goes kind of straight down and all those other places, but if you just draw straight across it, it looks pretty cool because it kind of smears the whole thing. But we didn't do it in this one. It's tough to do with the ridges from the 3D carves. So I'm adding just a little yellow feller, and it's really light. As you can see, that's a pretty light coat. And these guys are, at least for me, are tough to do with the big objects in this guy. There you can see I just sprayed a little water. And see, that just really gives you some time and really makes it much easier. Buys you some time to work with it and makes it much easier to just give it a nice soft layer. So, it looks a little more natural anyway. And they're not too bad to do if you've just got a plain sky. The big wide open sky, you can take a bigger soft brush and you can just go back and forth and really do some cool streaks and things. And, I usually do the clouds later. We probably won't even do the clouds in this one because they kind of pop a little bit by themselves. But if you had some big clouds that you said, hey, I want to do those clouds because they're important for the piece, for the picture, then we'd go back and do them almost towards the end. At least I do. So here's the orange. Yeah, and I think that looks a lot better than it would have if we'd gone yellow to orange. And I'm painting a couple parrots right now that I did go yellow to orange, and it looks pretty nice, and it's far from being done. But that one I actually went yellow to orange, and then came back with a brown metallic color to kind of give it some dark orange. And it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. So we're just lightly, you'll see me dabbing the brush a lot because we don't want to start you can't start with a wet brush, or you'll see where you laid that brush down. You know, you don't want the, as soon as you touch the surface of the paint, if that brush isn't already dry, you're going to be in trouble. Just adding a little bit of that orange. So here we're going to go back to the base of things. So here we're going to start painting some of the background forest stuff. And what I normally do, see it's a little bit out of frame there, I apologize for that. But I start with a dark green. So it's not quite black, but you can tell it's pretty darn dark. And I just paint anything that's behind the main scene that's not like a building, or, you know, an animal or something, that's anything that's shrubbery or grass or weeds, or even sometimes the rocks. I just go ahead and give everything a base color of green. A dark green, very dark green. So here you'll see we'll go around and we'll do that on everything. And I'm getting a little more careful about cutting things in right now. I mean, I'm still, some places I'm not going to be as cautious, like around the lip, because we'll go back and we'll paint that whole frame like a brown when we're done, so I'm not worried about getting any on top of the frame. Sorry, apologize, we're out of frame there. But yeah, essentially I'm just going around and painting everything in the background a dark green. One of the reasons is because it covers really quick. And everything's starting from the same base color, so I kind of understand what the color is going to do when I put it on. It's not some random, you know, I'm not painting over a blue, then a yellow, then a, you know, something that it's just more predictable. So I did speed this up a lot, so you see it jump up. I know it's still long, but you'll see it jump around a lot. So here I'm going around and just cutting in the grass. Cutting in the grass right there. Glad I at least finally got it back in the picture for a little bit. That's on the water, so I'm pretty happy with that water. And when we lacquer it'll look really good. So I'm going to be pretty careful around the water edges right now. One thing that I forgot to do on this one, and it's already lacquered, so it's too late now, but so we'll paint the rocks here in a little bit and some things. Right now everything's just getting a second coat on all the green things in the background. But usually when I'm done with it and there's any water in the scene, I'll take the smallest brush I have, like a 3-0 or something really small, and I make the thinnest line, white line that I can around the whole water edge. So anywhere the water touches the rocks or grass, or I just go around, I just really carefully make this pencil line of white. And it makes it's a nice contrast right there. It makes the water break stand out more. But I forgot to do it on this one. But I've got other pieces that have already been painted that are, I think I've got some on Facebook. I'm sure I do. If you go to Facebook and just scroll down through my profile, go down a little bit, you'll see some of the landscapes that I painted. So here I'm just gonna, and this is just what I decided to do. If you wanted to go right to colors, go right ahead. For some reason I just decided to go all to brown, and that's the way I know that each colors, they're all going to do the same thing. Same amount of coats. And it wouldn't be as critical if I hadn't been so crazy with the initial sky. but I just gonna do them all brown, and then all the birds are gonna respond the exact same to the colors I put on them. So I kind of, after I get the first one figured out, I'll know what the rest of them are gonna do. So I'm very careful when I work around the sky, because it is really tough to go back and try to fix that kind of blended, smeared look. And that's another reason why I always let the sky usually dry overnight, because if you do mess up, that being dry gives you a little bit of leeway to grab another brush quick and just lightly dampen it and then just wipe it off quick. And if it's still wet or wasn't cured very well, it would, smear over down to the wood again. So I'm pretty darn careful at this point around anything that's sky or water. There, see, I just messed up. These things are just a big time sink, but they're much quicker than if you were trying to paint. First of all, I wouldn't be able to paint this on a canvas from scratch, but the people that do this on canvas spend way many more hours than it takes us to do this. So we're jumping ahead, got one duck, two ducks done. Do the third duck, duck, goose. Who gives a duck? I don't know. And I really did try to cut out as much as I thought I could without people wanting to see how I worked with something, just to see it, because it used to help me. So there, we're down to the fourth duck. So I am jumping ahead a little bit here, not sparing you the agony of watching me paint all of them. And I wonder if these titles are going to add chapters. I'm hoping that some of those corny titles I'm popping in will let some of these AI software algorithms automatically add chapters. We'll see. There's the last little ducker. Cutting the other one in, and that's actually a 10-0, I believe. And I usually have 2 or 3 of those sitting there because every one of them's in some order of disarray, so they fray fairly quickly. I buy a pack of them, 5 for like $5-6. I don't buy real expensive brushes. And then when they get really frayed, I snip the ends off with a pair of side cuts or whatever, and then use it for other things. So usually I have 2 of them that are old, and then I have one sitting there that I usually keep a cover on for the really minute stuff. So cutting them all in. Around them all. It's just a long, tedious process. You just keep going. All the more reason to probably paint these colors what they are, right? And if I had to do it over again, I'd probably be a little more careful with the sky on this one, but maybe not. It doesn't take as long as you think it does. Second coat goes really fast because the brush tends to, that second coat just glides easier and it's not quite as tedious. And you don't have to go all the way to the edge, you just get close to the edge. Nobody will ever see it. And at this point, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with that third duck, because there's a couple things about it that are irritating to me. One is it's out of the water a little bit, but the wings aren't open. And I just noticed that while I was doing it. Okay, so here some of the colors. And right now I'm explaining where the lines are. So if you look, if you know, we can't see the picture, I should have flashed you guys the picture, but I was just pointing out that, you know, follow the 3D carve and look at your picture and find your lines. And we're gonna fill in the segments, right? Call it paint. Here's paint by numbers to a T. They just don't have any numbers on it. And don't worry too much about, you know, say even if you start painting them and they don't look that good, right? You're like, well, that just looks silly because you have two segments there, or, you know, they just don't look very natural. But don't worry about it, because we'll go back, and if we need to, we'll kind of dab blend those together, or we'll put border lines in, black lines, or we'll, you know, blend it together with shading or something. But if you try to worry about that stuff while you're doing it the first time, you'll never get it painted, because you just can't. I mean, you just have to lay color down and let it dry a little bit, and then go back and kind of blend them together.
When she was looking out that window on the bus to second grade, the first step she
So that's actually a silver. No, it's a white. It's a white metallic.
been through it all, but now it's time to go our separate ways. There's a first for everything.
I really like the metallics. You know, this is the first metallic color we've used on this painting so far. I always like to do the background and base, and then everything, you know, things you want to pop in metals, because it just automatically makes them pop more. You don't have to worry about it. And it's a 3D carving, and that's what you're trying, you know, you want it to pop. So the metallic colors really help that. And that's believe it or not, that's actually a brown, and it does look coppery, but I liked it. And it's a little bright right now, but you know, once we outline it and shade it in, it'll look great. I'm just cutting those in a little bit with the paint. Yeah, and I do this a lot because it's a whole lot easier to paint some of that stuff straight on, up and side down. Oh, jumped ahead, got the other one painted pretty quick. I'm getting faster.
The thing that I forgot would set her free. I taught her how to leave.
Second coat and everything. Sometimes you don't have to give second coats on metallics, but it all depends what look you're going for. A lot of the stuff, it looks great to let some blend through. That's one of the benefits of these carves and painting them. It's you let some of that, you know, wood or stain go through. So here we're getting the black out, and I'm just doing the other segments. So these ducks had black, you know, the parts of them were black, parts of them were white, parts of them were blue, parts of them were purple. It's a little bit of feathered in green. Really careful next to the sky there. So that's just a metallic black. Same thing the other one. And for some of those lines, I just kind of turned the brush on its, you know, you just have it straight up and down and just dab. And it gives you a nice, more natural, rather than just a straight line. Okay, now the little ones. Like, what do I do with those? Okay, we're just second coating the ducks right now. I believe for the second coat, and I didn't show it here, I probably have it in there, it's just that it's sped up so much. This is like 800, 900%. You know, I put just a tiny bit of that metallic brown in. It almost looks bronze or copper, but just a tiny bit of it. So we've got a base white layer, metallic, and then we've got another layer of this kind of it's just a little off-white. And here that's a metallic blue. I love that metallic blue. And now I'm just kind of following the picture and painting some of the segments. So we're still kind of painting segments, because you really don't want to do any shading. I mean, you can, obviously, but I try to get everything painted before I go back and start shading it. Because it just, you know, it's just easier.
Wanna clear a bottle, a cabinet. Wanna stay home.
So that little guy had a blue back there, and I'm still, at this point in this, I'm still trying to figure out, well, how in the world am I going to paint this middle duck? Because if you look at the picture right there, there's a whole bunch of speckles, and you know, I'm like, ugh. And there wasn't any great definition to it, so I was a little worried, but I just, you know, you always get some epiphany while you're working on it. We're still painting blue, and
two things can be true. Wanna throw away your amity.
And I kind of took those, you know, the picture does that too. It just kind of goes up and tapers off there.
Wanna block your number, take one last time, make it another.
And it's kind of a cool effect. So the way the bronze shows through. Doing the same thing to the other bird. Pretty much both birds were almost identical. So I treated them pretty much like that. The little birds, when I first started doing this, I was always concerned that the little bird, you know, I'm like, I'll never be able to paint that little stuff. It'll never look right. And, you know, I just was really worried about it. And actually the bigger stuff is harder to paint. The little things are so much more forgiving. For some reason, you know, I mean, yeah, you just can't blob it on there, but you know, a dot or one dot or line makes all the difference in the world. They're a lot easier to paint than you think they are. So don't be afraid to do models with small little fish or whatever in them. They're not too bad to do. And actually, you know, all these 3D carves look fantastic without even painting them. And I think some people would like them better without painting them. But eventually, to me, you know, you'd offer one or the other. Just raising it up to get a better line on some of those features. Ended up painting the back white also. I could have done that together, but I think I left it more white, so I didn't quite, the white's not quite as, just a hair off. Here's a little white stripe, just first few coats on it. You know, we'll probably have to go back and touch that up too. Things like these are like this right here is probably the hardest part of stuff to paint. You just have to have a steady hand. Okay, so the same pillars. Oh, good, we can see the picture now. So if you look up there, you can kind of see the picture of what we're doing. And we're still doing just base segment colors. So just one single color, or, you know, I don't think I haven't, other than the white, it's just a single color. And all I did was just a little bit darkening on the second coat of the white on the body. And this is just a metallic green. All those just those shuttle art or Babaloos or whatever they are, metallic paints. I think those are shuttle arts. But all that stuff, I did get all that. So if you go to either, my website, Mike's Custom Crafts, or if you go to YouTube for any of these videos, I've been posting in the comments, it's not a lot of stuff and it's not real expensive, but sometimes I know I spent a lot of time looking at the stuff that was decent for the money and bought a lot of stuff that was junk and really hated it. But I did put a list of all the stuff that I use, and 99% of it's all on Amazon. But so on my website or YouTube, on the bottom of the comment of the videos. Still painting green heads here. And you guys are probably thinking by now, Layoff, what's this guy doing with the transitions? Well, I used to use Adobe Premiere back in the day. I even used it as early as like Windows 3.1. That's how old I am, dating myself. But I haven't used it for a while, so I'm getting back into it. It's just the transitions are fun to play with. After Effects a lot more fun, but I don't think you guys want to see a bunch of fancy animations and things in these videos. We could add all kinds of fun stuff in. I'm just trying to get it done. So here are the little birds, and we're kind of doing the same thing. And basically you take the picture, right? It's all about the picture. And you can tell, as you guys can tell, I still haven't decided I'm pretty sure I hadn't decided what I'm doing with the little bird yet. And I'm just putting, I'm procrastinating, I'm putting it off, hoping it just flies away, right? Maybe it'll fly away and I won't have to paint it. Making sure all those segment colors are nice and covered. Once we start shading things, you can't go back and put more coverage on it. I mean, you could, but you'd be starting over again. So here I'm just, all the little segments, little details, and all those little details make a difference in the end. Right now I'm just kind of double checking, touching up a few spots, second coating a few things. And I definitely always like to get everything coated before I move the palette. So here I'm just putting in the picture, see the little white tips on the wings? So right now I'm just adding those white highlights everywhere. I mean, you don't have to stick to exactly what the picture is. I mean, have fun with it. You could take that CNC carve and grab any picture of any duck you want, and you could probably make it, look good. I've done several hunting, either a personal, somebody wants for their cabin or their hunting lodge, or they want it customized with their family name or family farm or something like that. I've done several. I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, maybe 10 or 15 hand painted things for them. And I'm not a hunter. I mean, I get it, and I don't have any problems with anybody hunting. I love guns. But I do appreciate painting the elks and the bears and that kind of stuff. That's fun stuff to paint. So these ducks are fun to paint too. But I live in Midwest Iowa, so this stuff's pretty popular around here. I'm originally from Indianapolis, so I'm kind of torn between, city guy and a country guy. We actually live in town, it's not out in the country, but now I'm just applying some black outlines. So eyes, and there's little places, if you look at the picture, there's creases. So in all these little creases, and you don't have to follow a crease, you know, whether it's there in the CN carve or whether you want to just put it there, you know, take a little black, and it's about the only time I use pure black in the whole painting. But here we're just going through, and we're, you know, if you watch it in other videos, I'm outlining all the shaded areas that are going to need to be dark before I shade them. Just a thin line of black. If we're going to work on this, I like to do one, you know, this one has, we've got what, 8 wings here that we want to look good. So this is kind of our guinea pig. So I'm just going to do this one wing and take it to almost completion, I think, with the tips and the shading and all that, and see if I like it or not before I move on to the other ones. Just outlining, filling in all the little ridges with a really light, I mean, it's really hard to see in the video, but it's just a really light black line. And you'll see me moving my finger a lot just to make it take some of the thickness out of it. So here I'm dark. This is where I'm making some shading. So that's just dark. Whatever the color you're shading, just make it dark. That's what I'm doing. That's what I did. So now it's adding a little bit. It's a little bit bigger brush, and I'm just adding a little bit wider shading. So I'm pointing to where I'm going to shade it at, and all the little tips. And we have all, if you can see from the picture, we've got quite a few spots there. So we're going to go and, well, you'll see me hit it all, right? And I'll darken it in certain spots, like the tips and the upper arm and things of the wing. It'll get really dark, but you'll see me shade it all. And I do that with everything because just, you kind of randomly want to do that because it makes it look much softer and much more natural. If you just leave, you know, if you just shade one part and leave the rest of it metallic, it's going to look funny. So here, I mean, that, if you look at that right now, that looks pretty good. I mean, that wing looks pretty natural. And so I'm going in, I've got the shading out, so I'll go ahead and shade in some of these deeper creased areas. And I still haven't decided what the duck I'm going to do with the middle duck. I know I can remember still painting this going, oh, what am I going to do with this duck? Or how am I going to paint it so it looks decent?
Spending the night in Dixon.
Shading the other wings, cutting the lines in.
60 odd miles from a plan. Is it too late to learn to listen?
Other wing, other wing.
Less a man. How many yesterdays are between us now?
So at this point, it's just a repeat and repeat, right? Fairly simple.
How many yesterdays are between us now?
And if we'd have hated that first wing, so if I would have done the first wing and I really hated it, you know, we wouldn't have lost a whole lot. We could actually gone and repainted over something or tried a different color, or we could have done something different. So adding all the outlines. So there we go, and I've got them all shaded, but some of the shading takes a second coat. Don't try to get some of the darker areas dark right away. You'll drive yourself crazy. So, you know, just shade, and then if it needs to be darker, come back and put another coat on it in 15, 20, 30 minutes or whenever the paint's dry. And metallics are funny. I mean, they're great to top coat something with, but they don't they're smooth, right? So they don't have the surface tension to attract the other paints right away. So it just sometimes takes a little more paint. So now there's just some little, and it's hard to see in the picture, but there's these little bitty yellow, and I don't know what they call them, cheek highlights and highlights of, they're not really, it's not really light, but it's just excuse me, coloring of the bird. So, and I like to throw those little details in, especially if it's just a few brush strokes. Here I'm mixing some, right now I'm doing so I took an orange and a yellow, and I mixed a yellower portion for the beak, and then and I also put a little bit of yellow and orange for the feet. And I just do that because I've learned that those colors work really well for the beaks and the feet. You could use just a straight orange if you wanted to for the feet. It would be fine. We're going to go around and just give them all a coat or two here. And they're not going to look very good to start with. This stuff looks pretty bad, especially since we shaded the bird a little bit. I mean, you're like, oh, this bird looks really good. I'm putting these really ugly beak and feet on here, but we'll come back and we'll shade those as well and draw in any webbing lines or anything that we think we need to add to it. And that's the kind of stuff that when you do 3D cars usually doesn't get, it's not the CNC's fault. It's just it interprets all this by shades of gray when it creates an STL. So those things tend to get a little wobbled. They're not exactly the right depth, and they're exactly, perspective's not quite right on them. So sometimes you paint it and you have to put some lines and things in just to make it look decent, so it doesn't look like a big blob of wood. But you can also fix some of that stuff in Blender beforehand. You can fix a few things in Aspire, but it's to me it's cumbersome. If you just want to add text, 3D text, and some basic, cuts and pastes and things, great, but it's just really clumsy for doing any fine 3D modeling. Just going around and touching up little pieces that I might have missed, or cutting in lines, adding some black deep lines, those little details that, Well, I think I decided what I'm doing with the bird. So I did a darker, so I took a metallic white and put some metallic brown in it, darkened it up. It's a little bit darker, so it's a little bit darker than the other ones. Basically going to paint the whole thing one color. We're going to try to match the picture close as we can. And once again, before I have to rinse that palette out or go let something dry or put it away, because you can't hardly keep them overnight. I mean, I've tried plastic bags and tried all kinds of stuff, and it's a pain. So I always try to get all the second, thirds, fourth coats on any of that stuff while I've got the colors still mixed and sitting there, because it's tough to come back the next day and try to match a color. It is for me anyway. Second coat to the middle bird. More beak and beak coats. it takes a lot of coats to go over. If you have a, like if I put a black metallic down and I want to put a light color over it, it takes a lot of colors to cover it because it's so slick. So here, just another coat, I think. I think I darkened it up a little bit or lightened it, one of the two. And then we're gonna let that dry, and I think we're gonna move on to, so we're gonna take all those blades of grass and things that we want to stand out, and we're gonna paint them a metallic. So this is a metallic sap or green. You know, you could mix that to any shade of green you wanted as well. But it's, since we did everything, and when we did the background, we started with a really dark color. These light single colors just really pop without even having to blend them at all. You know, you don't have to get real fancy on thinking about if you have to go recoat them or anything. So we're gonna zip around quick and at the speed of light here, paint all these little grass saplings. And you don't have to be super careful. I mean, you do around the water and anything like the sky or anything, but you know, around the dark, just paint the face. If you're worried about getting down and trying to cut every little bottom edge in, just paint the face of it, because people aren't going to go up and look straight down on it and see if did you cut it in perfectly? No, who cares? And we're going to shade it all anyway. So, you know, that looks pretty good right now. So here I'm just starting to give it's hard to see in the picture, but I actually went in and I gave, it's a yellow orange combination, and we went back to the regular acrylics, non-metallic, since we're back here in the background. We don't want that to pop. And you can see it now, there's just little dots, specks of that yellow green. So here we're actually painting the rock line. So there's a rock line in that picture. If you look at the picture, yep, there's a line of rocks, and it looked like a sandbar, but I'm gonna pretend they're rocks. And we're starting the rocks off. And I actually like painting rocks. I tend to do them mostly all the same because I think they look pretty decent. But I start and I just do everything in a flat gray. So everything back there is non-metallic gray. I don't hardly do anything in the background in metallic because I don't want to take away from the depth of the rest of the deal. So we're painting the first coat of the rocks, and I know it looks like a big blob right now. And don't worry about cutting in perfect, just don't get in the water. You know, you want the line to be pretty close, but it doesn't have to be perfect, because that will shade that as well. Everything will get shaded together. So now it's a really light green, and we're going to go back and give all the trees and things another little dab of highlight. And if that sun wasn't going down, you could actually just do one side of the tree. So it looked like the light was just on one side. And then I'm adding a little bit yellower near the base of the trees, like you'd have wild grass or something. And if you wanted to, you could go and you could add little dots for flowers. And you know, if you did put a whole bunch of little pink dots in a cluster or something, it'd look just like a patch of flowers back there. So now I'm going back, and I went to a dark green again, and I darkened it, and I'm going to go back after I put all those highlights in all those trees. I'm going back and putting shading in on the trees to add the depth back to it. And I know it seems counterproductive, but it's easier to do this than it is to try to do all that little highlighting around the shaded parts. So just go back and add it later. So here I'm doing outlines of the rock, and the middle bird's getting some highlights. That flipping middle bird. So I switched gears to the bird here, and I decided to go ahead and just dot in all those little dots. So that's what we're doing, just like the picture. We're going to go in and we're just going to make 100 little dots. And it didn't take as long as I thought it would. And once again, the 3D, you know, follow the 3D map. That's another reason it's so nice to do 3D. They kind of, you know, and you don't follow it exactly, but it sure gives you a nice roadmap. So I'm making all the lines again here, cutting it in. Another coat on the feet, cutting. I think, yeah, right now we're cutting the line, so we're not. Let's see. No, we're highlighting the feet, so we're adding some black to the feet. And it's been several days since I've done this, so. Yep, and you can see it's a little hard to tell in the video, but you can see where the feet start to take shape. And that's all we wanted to do. We just want to shape them. We're not trying to make some fine definition so people can count the toes. We just wanted to shape it so it doesn't look like a blob of color. Little nostril, and we put in a really small, you can't even see it in the video, but a super small little line where the bill, yeah, you can see it there, where the bill closes. So just super fine little black line there. More shading around the thing. Fine lines for the little baby ducks. Their little white collars. Second coat on the white highlights. Those usually always take 2 coats for the white to stand out. Oh, here I'm finally going back and finishing the rock lines. Sorry I jumped around there. But so all the ridges get a really thin, you know, just straight black. And you'll see me smudge a lot because, once again, that makes a huge difference. And it's going to look funny right now. You're going to go, that looks kind of silly, because it will. It won't look very good. I have a whole bunch of black rocks, a bunch of black lines on the rocks. And here's where I'm going to take advantage of, in some of the spots where there's not enough to make a 3 or 4, you know, if it's just a big clump of rocks, you just take advantage of the ridges and you just smear a little black on the top. Here we're going back and we're adding some white to so the splashes look more like a splash. There's a brown. And so I just took brown, lightened it way up, and we're just dabbing the rocks. And I usually start with one side or edge of the rock, just pick one, and you just get your brush dry. So dab it on the paper towel, get it dry, and just go back and dop on it. Make a little, you know, just little dabs on it, and it really makes the rocks. It's amazing how fast you can make those rocks stand out. Then we're going to go back and we're actually going to shadow in between the rocks, and even some little black smudges on them. They're going to give them some depth. So you can see what it just makes it, how fast and how nice those look. You know, for hardly any work. And their background anyway. We're not worried about high definition in the background. So here we're going to try to shade, and I used a dark orange, and we're adding the ever so slight, this was a little touchy, but an ever so slight shadow line. And you could really blow it right here. But so once again, make sure when you start this thin flat brush, when you start doing these shadow lines on the canvas, thin brush, and make sure there's no wet paint. You know, get the brush almost so there's no paint gonna come off, and that'll tell you what's gonna happen when you start rubbing on it before you're in trouble. So, and you want those shadow lines so they almost just disappear. Here I didn't like the seam. I didn't like the way the seam was on that. So I'm just going in and I'm putting some color on there to make those not look like a line between the black and the white. There I'm just adding a little smudge and brown, you know, just touch up smudges and shading.
Got the presence on me, I can't ever take it off. That's why I came country boy stepping, yeah, I'm country boy.
So in the picture, and you guys probably can't see it, but there was some purplish blue, you know, kind of a band of color. And it was really light. It wasn't a, you know, it's just almost like the bird just was translucent. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm going back over and I'm just very lightly putting a top coat of a bluish purple on there in different spots. And you'll see me put it on, put it off, wipe it down, wipe it off, because these ducks have about 4 different colors on their head. And if you can't get the look you want, try, you know, getting the brush really wet and wiping it off and then doing it. Sometimes it'd help it smear. And use your thumb, finger, smudge it a little bit. So here we're going to shade all the plants. So you basically want to shade where the plant touches any, you know, at the base of wherever it touches. Darker, little dark shadow lines. Here I got real close to that one. And then also I go, you know, I kind of rub it all over it and then wipe it off with my finger. And that softens the whole thing. Doesn't stand out so much. Just a little more shading on the bottom. A little shading on the top of the bill, softening it all up. And this is, you know, I wish I had there's no foolproof way to do that other than look at the picture. You know, look at the picture. Here we are, we're just adding a little bit of, I'm just putting some white on the outside of those wings. Or in the middle, excuse me. Doing the same thing, so it kind of, you can see it just makes those wings pop just a little bit more. Trying not to mess up the shading. So here's where I just took, I mean, ever so slightly with a dry brush, pretty much just going back and forth and just lightly rubbing, so you know, it looks like we've got a little sun going over. Fixing the white lines. Oh, did the eyes. So right there I'm dotting the eyes. That's all we're doing. Put a little bitty reflection light on the eye. And sometimes less is better on eyes. You know, if you had a big eye, we'd probably spend a little time putting a little color in it or something. But you can make it look a lot worse, let me tell you. So right there I was testing to see what brown I wanted to use. And we're going to do rocket speed, painting the edge of this. And if you're really careful when you're painting or taped it off, you could also tape it off. You could just leave it wood also. And that's probably not a bad idea. I probably wish I would have done that now, but put some tape down and then just left it natural wood. But this will look alright when we're done with it. And so I'm going to ever so carefully, this is probably the worst part of the whole thing. I almost put some tape down, but I just took my time. And I'm going to take that brown all the way down around the whole picture. So all that wild brush strokes we did to begin with are covered. And when you look straight on it, it looks, you know, it just looks good. So that's, you can kind of see that just cleans it up very nicely. And right now I'm doing the outside edge. And I can't remember if I showed it or not, but I let this dry overnight, and then I just put a little black on it. Just to make, just in the cracks, and wipe it off, and a little black and wipe it off. And here it is. So here's dry overnight. I came back and I'm just adding a little black. And it's hard to tell in the picture, but these subtle little things, knot holes darker and things like that, I mean, they really make stuff stand out. It doesn't look like it's just one solid color then, but you don't overdo it either. So that's what we're doing here, just adding the black. And then this puppy will be done. I wish I'd have put the white pencil line around the water line. That would have helped. I think it still looks pretty good, but that's one easy feature that makes it really pop. And not that nobody's seen somebody lacquer before, but I just include it. So usually 2 coats on each side. And you can see how that lacquer really, those metallics really pop. They really make it look nice. A little bit of really bad light reflections there, but there's our finished product. And thanks everybody. I appreciate you watching. Once again, all the products and things I used will be in the YouTube on the channels. And all these STL files will be available at my website, MikesCustomCrafts.com. Thanks everybody.